You close the sale on a brilliant modern reproduction. It is a quiet Tuesday afternoon. A wealthy couple from the suburbs just paid an absurd amount of money for a canvas that perfectly matches the interior design of their guest house. You shake their hands. You smile your perfectly practiced professional smile. You watch them carry the piece out to their luxury SUV. Then you walk to the back of your elegant minimalist gallery and you turn the lights off one by one. You are 32 years old. You wear tailored silk blouses and expensive heels that echo sharply against the polished concrete floor. To the outside world, to the other gallery owners in the district, and to the socialites who invite you to their charity galas, you are a brilliant curator. You are an educated, refined woman with an immaculate eye for aesthetics. But your true profession is not printed on your business cards. You are the shadow. You are the ultimate translator between the darkest corners of the underworld and the brightest penthouses of the global elite. You do not sell reproductions. You smuggle history. It did not start with a grand criminal conspiracy. It started with a whisper. Years ago, you were an ambitious art history graduate drowning in academic debt. You understood the emotional weight of negative space, the exact chemistry of Renaissance pigments, and the precise history of every major European master. You were brilliant, but brilliance does not pay the rent. One evening, a man in a bespoke cashmere coat lingered in the gallery where you interned. He asked you highly specific questions about a 19th century portrait. He did not care about the brushstrokes. He cared about the paperwork. He cared about the provenance. He looked at you and realized you possessed the exact combination of genius and desperation his employers required. He asked if you knew how to handle a masterpiece with a complicated past. You should have walked away. You should have called the authorities. Instead, you nodded. That single nod was the invisible point of no return. Here is the truth that movies never show. The stolen art market is not about men in black masks breaking through skylights with lasers. Real stolen art moves slowly. It moves through layers of sophisticated professionals who speak softly and wear expensive watches. You are the most important layer. You are the washing machine. Your job is to take a piece of merchandise that was forcefully removed from a European museum or an ancient archaeological site and give it a brand new, perfectly legal existence. You fabricate the history. You construct an alternate reality. You buy vintage typewriters from the 1960s to forge old appraisal documents. You invent private sales between deceased Swiss collectors. You route the paperwork through shell companies in Luxembourg and free ports in Geneva. You take a masterpiece that Interpol is actively hunting, and you wrap it in so much bureaucratic camouflage that it magically becomes a legitimate asset. The money is beyond comprehension. For your first major operation, a stolen Dutch Golden Age panel, you received a wire transfer of $300,000 to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. It took you 4 days of typing and 3 phone calls. You stared at the glowing numbers on your laptop screen in the dark, realizing that you had just made more money than your university professors would make in a decade. You justify it at first. You tell yourself that the art is not being destroyed. You tell yourself that it will actually be better preserved in a Billionaires' climate-controlled vault in Dubai than it ever was in a dusty regional museum. You convince yourself that you are a savior of culture, a high society rebel. But the illusion of elegance eventually shatters, exposing the cold, raw machinery underneath. The people who supply the merchandise are not art lovers, they are apex predators. They manage international logistics, unlisted cargo ships, and organizations that resolve their problems permanently. They view a Picasso the exact same way they view a shipment of narcotics. It is simply an asset with a high profit margin, and you are simply a contractor on their payroll. The psychological weight begins to crush your chest in the second year. You live in a spectacular penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Your closet is filled with designer labels. But your apartment is a fortress of paranoia. You never sit with your back to the door. You cycle through burner phones every 2 weeks, snapping the SIM cards in half and throwing them into different public trash cans. You isolate yourself entirely. You distance yourself from your mother, claiming that your international travel schedule is simply too demanding. The truth is, you cannot look her in the eyes. The truth is. So every person who knows you becomes a potential vulnerability. If the authorities find you, you go to a federal concrete box for the rest of your natural life. If the syndicate suspects you are a liability, you simply disappear without a trace. Your silence is the only armor you have. Then, the inevitable mistake happens. You are drinking black coffee at your kitchen island at 6 in the morning, scrolling through international art news. Your blood turns to absolute ice. An investigator from the Art Loss Register has reopened a cold case regarding a 17th century masterpiece. It is a piece you washed 3 years ago. The buyer, a tech billionaire who promised extreme discretion, foolishly allowed the painting to be photographed in the background of a magazine interview. The investigator is following the paper trail. And the trail points directly to a defunct gallery in Vienna that you used as a front. The panic is not a sudden explosion. It is a slow, suffocating lack of oxygen. You know how the system operates. The moment the international authorities connect your name to that transaction, the syndicate will not hire lawyers to defend you. They will send someone to permanently sever the link between you and the merchandise. They will erase you from the equation. Your encrypted phone vibrates on the marble counter. It is a text from the man in the cashmere coat. It contains only 2 words. Zurich, tomorrow. You fly to Switzerland. You sit in a private room at an exclusive hotel. The man slides a manila folder across the table. Inside is a high-resolution photograph of an artifact so famous, so heavily monitored by global intelligence agencies, that just looking at the image makes your hands tremble. It is an item that was violently acquired during a conflict in the Middle East. People lost their lives when this item was relocated. We need this integrated into the private market, he says, his voice perfectly flat, entirely devoid of human empathy. We need a clean history by the end of the month. You look at him. You try to keep your voice steady. This is too hot. Half the intelligence agencies in the world are tracking this piece. The Art Loss Register is already asking questions about my previous accounts. I cannot touch this. The man does not blink. He slowly takes a sip of his sparkling water. You misunderstand the architecture of our relationship, he whispers. You are not a freelancer evaluating a contract. You are a component of our logistics. If a component stops functioning, it is replaced, and the old component is recycled. He slides a second photograph across the table. It is a picture of your younger sister walking out of her university library in London, time-stamped from yesterday afternoon. The end of the month, he repeats softly. He stands up and leaves the room. You sit alone in the terrifying silence of the Swiss hotel. The reality of your existence crashes down on you with the weight of a collapsing building. You thought you were an elite dealer. You thought you were the smartest woman in the room. You thought your tailored suits and your sophisticated vocabulary elevated you above the street-level criminals. You were profoundly wrong. You are nothing but a high-value hostage. You built a beautiful golden cage, and you handed the keys to monsters. You fly back home. The terror is no longer abstract. It is a physical entity living inside your nervous system. You begin the meticulous process of constructing the fake provenance for the Middle Eastern artifact. You forge the documents. You invent the shell companies. But you know that completing this task will not save you. It will only delay the inevitable. Once this masterpiece is moved, your exposure will be absolute. You will become a radioactive liability. You stop sleeping entirely. Every time the elevator chimes down the hall, your heart hammers against your ribs. Every time a dark sedan idles too long outside your gallery, a cold sweat breaks out on the back of your neck. You are living in a state of clinical hypervigilance, waiting for the footstep in the dark, waiting for the polite knock on the door that signals the end of your life. You have to execute the ghost protocol. For 3 years, you have been slowly siphoning fractions of your commissions into decentralized, untraceable ledgers. You have accumulated $4 million in digital assets. You have a secondary identity waiting in a safety deposit box in Singapore, a perfect passport, a new history, a completely sterile existence. It is a Thursday evening. The gallery is empty. The rain is beating violently against the large glass windows. You leave the forged documents for the artifact on your desk. You do not pack a suitcase. A woman running into the night with luggage is a woman leaving a trail. You walk out of the gallery wearing a simple trench coat. You leave your personal phone on the counter. You leave your keys. You leave your entire identity behind in the dark. You walk to the underground transit station. You do not run because running triggers attention, and attention is fatal. You board a train heading toward a minor border crossing. You sit in the window seat, watching the reflection of your own pale, terrified face in the glass as the city lights blur into the distance. You disappeared. You beat the system. You slipped through the invisible cracks of an empire that sees everything. 6 months later, you are sitting on the balcony of a small, modest apartment in a crowded Southeast Asian city. The humidity is suffocating. You are 33 years old. You have millions of dollars in wealth that you can never conspicuously spend. You cannot buy a luxury car. You cannot wear designer clothing. You cannot draw a single fraction of attention to yourself. You are completely safe, and you are entirely, permanently destroyed. You can never contact your sister to explain why you vanished. You can never return to your home country. You live in absolute anonymity, jumping at the sound of a motorcycle backfiring in the street below. You scan the faces of the tourists in the local markets, constantly searching for the cold, unblinking eyes of the men sent to permanently close your file. You traded the brilliance of your mind for a fortune you can never enjoy. You wanted to live among the masterpieces, and your ultimate reward is an eternity of waiting in the shadows. You are the invisible woman, a ghost haunting her own life, knowing that in the high-stakes market of the underworld, the past never truly stays buried. It just waits for the perfect moment to collect its final debt.